Hello, everybody. Michael Francis Lai here. Welcome to our Harmonius podcast series. I am here with author Peter Wells, and we are discussing his book, Notes from the West Pole, Creating a Harmonious Life in an Adversarial Culture. And today we're going to be looking at the chapter, It's Not Out There, It's In Here.
It's not out there, it's in here. All around the world, we now have government by armed forces in power over the individual person. The consent of the governed is neither considered nor realized. The so-called sovereignty of the nation is not of benefit to the individual person, nor to the whole human family. It allows corrupt regimes to commit atrocities and allows civil wars to continue unabated. It also ignores human suffering and, in fact, exacerbates it. If our objective is personal freedom in a peaceful world, it won't be possible in a world of sovereign nations. Wars rage across the Middle East and Africa. Millions of Syrians and Iraqis seek asylum, having abandoned their homes, their lives in ruins. The so-called rulers of the so-called sovereign nations and the terrorists they oppose aggravate the human wound by blindly bombing defenseless human beings. Much of the human family is armed and ready for battle in a trance of self-destruction, a trance in which innocent people kill innocent people for no reason, a trance based on a colossal misunderstanding of what this life is all about. How do we awaken from this trance of human conflict as a forced fact of life? How do we open the human mind to a fresh understanding of what this life is about? How about a change of mind? A change of mind means a change of purpose. If our purpose is to experience a more harmonious way of life than we've inherited, if we're looking for our personal freedom in a peaceful world, we can do it. We can change our mind. We've been trained and conditioned since early childhood to be obedient to authority. We were steeped in compulsions and punishments, and we did as we were told. However, there are two kinds of authority, the one that uses force to sustain its power, and the other we consent to. The rulers, dictates, and enforcements, the jealous and vengeful gods, are not in power over us. The true power is not outside of us. The power, the truth, the freedom is within, not out there, in here. The change of mind is to place the emphasis of this life where it belongs, within, not out there, in here. This simple change enables an evolving worldview to emerge. We are becoming one human family in one earthly environment, and the outside powers, the sovereign nations and the various religions, their laws and their dogma, can assume a lesser place in the personal mind. Our change of mind places responsibility for this life on the one living it. The emphasis now is personal, instinctual, and intuitive, beyond the reach of invented entities. We want a harmonious way of life and a peaceful world. We can be harmonious on purpose. This is a personal responsibility. It's not out there, it's in here.
So you start off this piece really addressing the notion of human conflict and really addressing this dilemma that we're in, this human disease where we're killing and murdering each other. And then you follow it up with the source of the problem as you see it and a solution. And from what I'm hearing in this piece is that you say that basically the reason why we're in conflict with each other is because we've been taught to obey this false authority. And on a deeper level, we're sort of rebelling against that to achieve a sense of freedom, and we might not even recognize we're doing that. And then you're saying that it's through honoring our own innate power, honoring our own freedom, that will sort of resolve and dispel the trance of human conflict. Because I think what you're actually pointing at is the deeper need that is underlying these acts of violence that's not fully being acknowledged.
Okay. I think the main point is that in our learning about our life in our society, we have been indoctrinated with the idea that this outside power that is telling us what to do is more important than the inner being, than the inside power. Mm-hmm. Our destiny right now is to go towards the inner power. So we have to come to a place where we recognize that our problem, our difficulty, is the dualism that is being taught throughout the culture. The conflict between good and evil is seen as a natural event, whereas it's concocted. It's not actual. It's a judgment. And it's something that is preached and pushed at us with punishments. So dealing with that is very awkward and very difficult. How then do we go beyond this chatter that's been created by the dialogue between the inner self and the outside power? Which should we do? Should we do this? What should we not do? All of this stuff that is divided for our consumption and for our being obedient to the division. Will we learn to be good rather than evil? Will we digest who's a friend and who's an enemy? All of this stuff, and it's just nonsense really, is running through our minds and misleading us from the real destination, which is to fulfill this being that we are. That this source that we are carrying within us is much more important and much more use to us than the outside authorities and the requirements of the culture. Okay, a lot of it is cool. A lot of what is happening in our culture is totally cool. But we also have a punitive and aggressive legal system and judicial system that will incarcerate us if we step out of line. And the power is not within us, the power is outside of us. And we're taking away the whole body that contains this other potential reasoning. I'm thinking of Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was arrested and jailed for something that he didn't believe in, had no part of. He had a vision for the society that was not based on what had been. It was based on something completely new. So that's where we are. We're with Nelson Mandela. We've inherited this way of life that has put us in confusion. Now we're evolving into a fresh understanding of what we're doing here. And it's not out there. It's in here. The truth for us, the fulfillment of this being that each of us is from within, from an acceptance of who we are in our natural self, not what we're required to be, not what is somebody else's wish, somebody else's ambition. Can we find the inner being that we are and fulfill it?
Yeah, and it's like the confusions and the divisions of the culture are just sort of superimposed on our mental programming, because our mind, exactly. It really is like a computer, and we can program it and we can reprogram it. And it's like coming into this culture, it's programmed into this divisive, like binary mode of operation. But I believe that there is a deeper part of us that resonates beneath that programming, that offers us clarity and direction. And I believe that we can trust that. So how do we attune to that? How do we get beyond this programming and really align with that deeper part of ourselves?
Well, I think we have to rest. We have to learn how to rest our mind. We have to learn how to not think. We need to use other wavelengths that are available to us. Music is one. Nature is one. The ocean is one. We don't have to think about certain things. We can look at stars in the sky and we don't need to think. They're already there. Same with ourselves. This being predates this civilization. This civilization is something that we've used and has been fantastic. It's really incredibly versatile and productive. However, it's based on this false premise that there is a power outside of us that is more important than the power within us. That is completely false.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I do believe that it's important in order for us to get kind of beyond the mental chatter to find ways to attune to that deeper part of myself. And one of my practices that I do to do that is when I find myself really stuck in my head and conflicted, I'll set the intention, okay, where can I perceive beauty in this moment? And it's like I'll retrain my mind and I'll look at the trees or the flowers or the sky. How much beauty can I behold in what is around me right now? And I notice that when I can tune into that wavelength, then there's a stillness and there's a peace. And it sort of brings me into this deeper level of reality that was eclipsed when I was operating within my own personal struggle. So I think that there is this element of tuning to this deeper part of ourselves. And I think also there's an element, because the mind is like a computer, of reprogramming it and retraining it to unite and to come into harmony with that deeper reservoir. So,
well, I think, maybe the main thing is there's an existing intelligence in the being. Mm-hmm. It has somehow arrived here with all these faculties, has evolved over millions, billions of years to become this. And so that fact that we predate the civilization, that what we've learned of the civilization is all well and good, but the inner being has to adapt to it. And the inner being, what's in here, has to be honored in order for us to really get it. If we're still thinking that the power outside of us is more important, we're misleading ourselves. Mm-hmm. And yet, that's what we've been educated to do. We've been educated to deny ourselves, right, to forego pleasures, perhaps, that the inner being might like, and to be obedient to the voice outside of us rather than the real voice within us. But, the other point is that our actual condition is not within our ability to understand with our mind. The mind is inadequate to really understand the whole condition. The whole condition, the way it exceeds the capacity of the mind to think about. Our brain, the absurd idea that we're not using part of our brain, how absurd is that? Of course we're using the whole brain. We just don't know what we're using it for. The mind has not caught up with the brain. Our destiny is to just simply be this without knowing. Mm-hmm. We can't understand certain things, so we have to accept the unknown as a part of what we are and of what we're experiencing. And if we try to make it fit into the civilization and the morality that we've been indoctrinated with, we lose track of that primal source that is still there within us, this intelligence that somehow arranged to be here.
Yeah. And, one of the things I've noticed in my life, too, is that, so I've kind of gone through my life, and in my mind, I felt like I've had absolutely no idea what the heck I've been doing. And I've just kind of been fumbling my way and feeling my way through situations and relationships. But when I really take a step back and look at my life, I can see how I've almost been guided by this unconscious process, by this deeper intelligence that has led me to connect with very important people and led me to be on this incredible path that I'm on. And so even though my mind sort of has this idea that it doesn't know what's going on or it wants to control, I can see how there's this deeper intelligence that's operating through me, guiding me over the course of my life.
Right.
So I don't know if you've noticed that for yourself too.
Well, I've noticed it in you.
I think it's happening now.
I think so. But I think the way to quiet the mind, to rest the mind, can be done in many different ways. Meditation, for example. Right. Certainly music and the witnessing of great beauty in nature, as you suggest, is also one. There are wavelengths going on beyond our mental capability.
Yeah.
And once we're allowed in our mind, if we allow ourselves to go beyond our mental capability and just be, the whole intelligence is available.
Yeah, and I think that the mind is like a radio station, and I think you can sort of master what frequency you attune to, and you can attune to that conflict and that trauma, and that's one frequency. But what we're kind of talking about is attuning to a deeper resonance, a deeper frequency, and then sort of orienting our lives from that deeper place.
And that's what Mandela did.
Mm-hmm.
Mandela was not operating under the laws of the country, even though he was completely imprisoned.
Right.
His development was all inside him.
Yeah.
It's not out there. It's in here.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for this dialogue, Peter. And for those that are interested in Peter's book, which I helped compile and edit, I can vouch it's an amazing work. Notes from the West Pole, Creating a Harmonious Life in an Adversarial Culture. You can find it at www.harmonius.com, and that is spelled Harmony, us with a Y. So have a beautiful week, y'all, and we'll see you next time.